and the contribution to the plans that we put together, which these are military plans, which are now ready. We made some real progress today, a very important call with President Trump earlier on in relation to security guarantees, as Emmanuel has just set out. And as we've said all along, we, the coalition, stepping up, showing what we will do, the plans we've put forward, credible military plans, and alongside that, the backing of the US. So we stand ready as a coalition to support the meeting on Friday and everything that I hope can flow out of it. Nothing is obviously guaranteed, and as Emmanuel has said, and Friedrich has said, the President has agreed to debrief immediately afterwards so that we know what the next steps will be. But we're ready to support this, including through the plans that we've already drawn up to deploy a reassurance force once hostilities have ceased. And that's a long-standing principle of this group. And alongside that, any talk about borders, diplomacy, ceasefire. Firstly, and obviously, there can be no negotiations about Ukraine without Ukraine. And that's been a long-standing principle of this group. And I know Volodymyr is on the call and will be absolutely clear in relation to that. And along with that international borders cannot be and must not be changed by force. And again, that's a long-standing principle of this group. And alongside that any talk about borders, diplomacy, ceasefire has to sit alongside a robust and credible security guarantee to ensure that any peace, if there is peace, is lasting peace, and that Ukraine can defend its territorial integrity as part of any deal. And that's why this group was set up. That's why it's important we've all made the commitments that we have. Lasting peace in Ukraine. I think it's important that this group stays in. It is important to remind colleagues that we do stand ready also to increase pressure on Russia, particularly the economy, with sanctions and wider measures as may be necessary. You can see the effect of those measures already, and we in the UK are preparing our next package of strong sanctions in that regard. So I think it's important that we all continue to work alongside President Trump, alongside President Zelensky, and for a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. And we've made some real progress today, a very important call with President Trump earlier on in relation to security guarantees. The ceasefire is very welcome. It'll be a huge relief to hostages and their families who've been through most awful of times. It's really important they're released just as quickly as possible. It'll be released for the very many Palestinians who've suffered hugely as well, and this must be used to get desperately needed aid in at scale and at speed. But it must also, and I've been talking to regional leaders about this, be used obviously to get through the various stages, but also as a path to a lasting peace, which has to be a two-state solution, a viable Palestinian state and a safe and secure Israel. So we're working with those in the region and our allies to make sure that this welcome news is enduring news, and we'll be putting all of our efforts into that. It's very important that we ensure that Ukraine is in the strongest possible position. That's something I've been arguing for since I've been Prime Minister. This is my 7th meeting with President Zelensky. I'm here at the burns unit of one of the Kiev hospitals, which is a grim reminder of the heavy price that Ukraine is paying here. So we must put in the necessary support. So that's what I'm discussing with President Zelensky today. We must never let up on that, and we've been leading the way. At the same time, we're signing a 100-year partnership between UK and Ukraine. This is a real statement of our intent for the long term in relation to our commitment to Ukraine. So I'm here for both of those purposes, but the main one is to make sure that Ukraine is in the strongest possible position during 2025. One of the consequences of this conflict has been to draw NATO more strongly together. It's bigger and stronger than it has been, and we must stand behind Ukraine for as long as it takes. But when we say Ukraine must be in the strongest possible position, that can't be just words. And that's why I've had such intense discussions with President Zelensky now over the months that I've been Prime Minister, and will again here in Ukraine, because that is very, very important as we go into 2025. We're now a long way into this conflict. We mustn't let up. It was always going to take time to turn around 14 years of economic failure under the last government. That was always going to take time. The figures out today are a step in the right direction, but there's much, much more that we've got to do and that we will do. We're going to be unrelenting when it comes to driving our economy forward, changing the planning rules, changing regulation. The Chancellor is having a session today with the regulators working on this, because we intend to turn this around to get that economic growth. And the reason for that is not a line on a graph, but so that your viewers, everybody listening to this and hearing this, will feel better off. And so we're 100% working on this. We're going to be unrelenting. It's a step in the right direction. There's a lot more that we will be doing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I join the Prime Minister in welcoming the delegation from Bring Back Kids, who are trying to return the tens of thousands of children abducted by Vladimir Putin, an act of pure evil. The Prime Minister will be aware that they've been working with the Yale University Humanitarian Lab, who were tracking thousands of those children inside Russia until recently. I say until recently because they've had their long-term funding removed. Will we consider using our existing contributions to the Partnership Fund for a Resilient Ukraine to restore that important work that they're doing, and in doing so restore the hope that those children can be returned to their anguished families?
Well, I'm grateful to him for emphasising this again. Russia's abduction of Ukrainian children is sickening, and I think across the House we would all agree on that. A peace settlement in Ukraine must see Russia held to account and the children reunited with their families. And in specific reference to his question, the UK is playing our full part in international efforts, including funding the Bring Kids Back initiative through the Partnership Fund for a Resilient Ukraine. And I want to reassure the whole House we'll do everything we can to see these children returned and reintegrated as safely and as quickly as is possible.